So we have this homemade DIY dolly cam in our church, and I'm gonna show you guys how to use it. First of all, what do we actually use it for? We use this to get wide shots of the stage and also close-ups of kind of our background vocalists, just to give us a little bit more variety in the shots that we're getting of our singers. Obviously, it also moves left and right, which helps create a lot of energy and really just keep our shots a lot more interesting during the service. So how do we actually use it? Well, first things first, you have to know how to stand and actually how to hold it. So I like to hold it kind of like this, where I'm really standing sideways. So that way, when I'm using the camera, I'm walking forward and I'm walking backwards rather than left and right. That just gives me a lot more flexibility to not be like shuffling and making myself hit my own feet as I go. Helps me not get my legs tangled and just create things a lot more easily. Next is the speed at which you're moving it. Now this is gonna vary a lot based on what song you're doing, kind of how things are happening. But as a general rule, if things are going slow with the music, you're gonna be moving this pretty slow. If things are going fast with the music, you might be moving it pretty fast. You obviously have to keep track of where the ends are so that you slow down before you hit the end rather than just crashing into it. But that's just something to be aware of as you're using it. Next up with using it is the actual framing of things. Now, again, I talked about wide shots of the stage. This lens will go pretty wide. It's a 14 mil, so it'll get crazy wide in this room. And we like it to see people that are down here worshiping in the church with their hands up, but we don't like to have a bunch of space above the stage or a bunch of space off to the sides of random stuff happening. I like to frame it so that the bottom of my frame is kind of right below the edge of the stage and the top of it is right above this screen. This puts our vocalists kind of right in the middle and helps make sure that there's stuff filling the frame at all points. And then as far as the left and right, I just like to make sure we have these nice trusses on the left and right of our stage, and I kind of push in just so those are right out of frame. So this is about where I am for our wide shot most of the time. Every once in a while, I'll be wider if I really want to show more people, but that's kind of my safe spot. Then if we want to get a background shot of vocals, I'll go ahead and get tight. And this is a 140 at its farthest, so you can get pretty tight on a vocalist who's sitting up here. So next is actually when you're moving, how to make sure that you're maintaining good shots. So something that I see a lot of people do is as they move, they don't move their camera. So they're kind of panning left and right. And as you can see as I'm doing that, the drums are coming in and out of frame, which doesn't actually feel that good. So instead, as you're walking, you need to actually be turning your camera just a little bit so that your framing stays exactly the same and you see the same things in that frame. This has two effects. One is you see everything that's on your stage and you keep seeing it as you're supposed to. But two is when you have people down here and they're in the foreground of your shot, it creates this parallax effect where it looks like they're moving, but the stage is standing still. So this helps create just a lot of extra energy and just something really creative and exciting in your shots. It's really good to mix in. Now, something that can happen as you're walking back and forth, because I like my camera ups to keep moving the whole time, that way I can cut to it as a director anytime that I need to. But if the camera op is getting pretty close to the end and the director says they're previewing them and they're coming up next, well, I don't want to take the shot right as I'm about to hit the end and then either have to stop or start moving back the other way or start moving after I'm already live. So if I'm the camera op, I'm moving here and the director says, looking at 2, this is camera 2. What I'm going to do is either hurry up, get to the end, and then start moving back. Or if I'm close enough already, I'll just stop and start moving back the other way right away. This way, I'm giving the director the most amount of rail that they can work with to keep my shot live as long as they can. I want to make sure that I don't have just like 2 seconds on this rail before they have to cut away from it, because that's usually too quick of a shot that we really don't want. It's not going to look good. It's not going to tie in well with the rest of what's happening, and it's just going to feel rushed. So always try to give your director as much rail space as you can for any live shot. Now, part of that is you kind of have to read the director's mind on how long they're going to take before they actually take your camera. Part of it is just knowing your director, having worked with them a longer period of time so you know their tendencies. But the third part, and this is really important, is just knowing your songs. If you know the songs and your director directs with the rhythm of the song and the beat of the song and the speed of the song and what's happening, you can kind of feel out when they might actually come take your camera. And this is true of any camera really, but especially this one because you're limited in the way that you can move. Knowing the song is going to help make sure that you are live at the right times and you're creating shots that help the overall live stream the best. And if you have problems remembering things like maybe camera settings for your camera, go ahead and check the link below for my free camera setting cheat sheet. It's free, you can download it. It will help you out with all the camera settings that you don't remember on how to set up for your live stream. So hopefully that's helpful to you. Now, because there's people in front of this camera, it can also feel really good to zoom in a bit and actually get somebody's hand kind of right in front of the lens. And you can pull focus from that hand to then the vocalist on the stage and just, again, create some more creative shots and something a little bit more exciting. Now, I talked about pacing before of your left and right. Now, something that you have to keep in mind as you're moving back and forth is that the tighter you're zoomed in, the faster it'll feel like you're moving. So if you're zoomed in really tight, you really can move very slow and you'll get a lot of motion in it for free. Whereas if you're pretty wide, you have to walk pretty fast in order to actually get that same level of motion. So something to keep in mind as you're using it. Now, when is this camera actually used kind of as a director? Well, for me, there's a couple of big times. One is coming out of a big drum crash into a big bridge or something like that. As those drums crash, I want this camera to be moving fast down the line. That helps create a lot of energy as people's hands are going up, as the lights are moving, and really just builds that moment. Another time that we like to use this camera is just a really, really slow slide during a transition moment. That way you're not close up on anyone on stage as they're drinking water or getting ready for the next song, and you just kind of keep things settled and you can kind of wait as the next song is getting ready to get started. If your band transitions really quickly, you may not need this shot, but I find it super helpful. Now, that's about it during sermons. We like to just use it, keep things energetic, keep things moving, whatever. But what about when we get to the sermons? Because of where we are in our room, it would be really distracting if we're walking back and forth. So instead, what we actually do is we take this down to the end and we lock this dolly down with another clamp, and our operator just sits here. And this camera is used to get just a head-to-toe shot of our pastor, as well as some wide shots of the stage if we want to see the screen behind him as well. Then when we get to the song after the sermon that we do, we'll unlock and we'll move again. So this dolly cam really gives us a lot of flexibility in the types of shots that we're getting and just helps keep things from feeling stale and lifeless in our services. Because we've got a tripod over there and some handheld cameras over there, it kind of bridges the gap between those two. And you don't have to have a big dolly cam like this to do this type of shot. You can do it with someone holding a gimbal walking through your church, or a more expensive, more professional dolly even, not something that's DIY like this. But if you want to know how to make a DIY dolly like this, I have a video linked up here that'll show you exactly how I built this for about $100. So this type of camera isn't for everybody, but we find that it really, really helps bring life to our live streams in a way that we just haven't been able to accomplish any other way. So if you like this and you're interested in it, go ahead and hit subscribe and leave a comment asking any questions. Until next time.